Here, to report that the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development issued the employment recruitment of Uganda migrant worker regulations of 2021. We are grateful, for this, because if you may notice, ever since there have been issues of trafficking or issues connected to recruitment agencies, and the good thing about here, even the penalties when you commit some of these crimes have been extended. For example, before we used to have like 3 months, we committed some of these crimes. Now it is 5 years, up to 5 years, and some fines in there. So maybe to read for you some of the offenses and penalties, and this has really been guided by reports from the public, what has been happening with some of even the recruitment agencies which were deregistered. So offenses and penalties, I'm just going to read some of them. If a person, up to 5 years, this one, yeah. If a person operates a recruitment agency without a license issued by the ministry, operates a recruitment agency where the license issued under these regulations expired or is suspended or revoked, advertises job vacancies for manpower pool without the approval of the ministry, operates a pre-departure training institution without accreditation. And now even pre-departure is not less than 2 weeks. So because you have to educate people, prior to them going, abroad, give them the right information, what to do in case of a challenge, where they are going, the rules and regulations. So it is really good. And even for the people who are conducting pre-departure orientation, you have to tell us who they are, because it has to be qualified people and in the premises, and you have to even to attach that to make sure that everybody knows that somebody has undertaken pre-departure orientation. Anybody who operates as a pre-departure training institution where its accreditation is suspended and revoked, also up to 5 years, and fines. If you obstruct an inspecting officer from accessing the premises in a recruitment agency or pre-departure training, because officers will this is about monitoring and evaluating where these activities take place. Receives or charges fees in contravention of the regulations, misleads a migrant worker on the terms and conditions and service of employment, substitutes a contract approved by the ministry. If you substitute a contract of an employee, damages a seal or a material used by the ministry to close premises, because now the ministry is also supposed to close, those premises in case you are removed from what? Exporting labor. If you open a branch of a recruitment agency without the approval of the ministry, opening of branches, or if you have a third party, all the activities of that third party, you have to take responsibility. It's no longer that, I don't know that person was recruiting on my behalf. Collects fees from a migrant worker, but without valid reasons, fails to deploy a migrant worker abroad within 120 days. This is going to be helpful, because with the migrant workers who say, oh, I'm still waiting. You're waiting 1 year, 2 years, somebody has not yet deployed you. So even when you do this, there's also a penalty to that effect. So that things are really, really quick. Now, according to these regulations, the following are not eligible to be licensed as recruitment agencies, travel agencies. You've had stories of people in your travel agency, then again you are exporting labor, you are not allowed to. Companies whose directors or shareholders are engaged in the business of operating travel agencies, political, religious, or cultural leaders, you're not allowed, to do this. Also, companies whose directors have a criminal record related to illegal recruitment, even those companies who have been declared insolvent, you're also not allowed, to recruit. And even when you're recruiting, you're supposed to publish. This is another good one, because you have to publish in a wide in a newspaper where there's wide readership. So if you are recruiting, from Kampala, don't you go again to publish in Eto, in text, so you have to publish, and everybody, should clearly see where people are going. And again, I say that assume full responsibility for all acts of all its officials, all its employees and representatives who are carrying out these, responsibilities. Where a license of a recruitment agency is suspended, the recruitment agency shall return to the migrant worker or to the ministry all the documents submitted and the fees or charges paid by the migrant worker. So those refunds are now anchored into law. It's going to be really helpful. A company whose directors or stakeholders were involved with the recruitment agency, whose license was previously revoked. So you cannot again go, and open another agency. Or engages in the recruitment or placement of migrant workers in jobs which are harmful to public health or morality. Advertisements, for vacancies, the ministry shall approve all adverts. And those adverts will be detailed, the names and addresses, number of vacancies, accreditation, date of approval, including proposed salary. That when you're reading an advert and it is out in the public, the salary should be there, not in hiding. And also countries of placement of migrant workers, duration of the contract, and application fee should also be clear. And it also gives employment contract shall indicate migrant workers are entitled. So in the contract you get, they should include that you're entitled to wages for regular working hours. And if there's overtime, there's also that overtime pay. You're entitled to medical treatment. You're entitled to compensation for injury sustained at work. Or in case of death, even your remains, should be brought back home. So this is going to create a lot of clarity and help people on the move. And all this information, by the way, during pre-departure orientation, you're entitled to this information, as you move. Now, if a person who secures a contract for employment abroad on his or her own, and who is not recruited or placed by a recruitment agency, that person shall, before travel out of Uganda, seek clearance from the ministry. Because most of the trafficking we are having outside Uganda, especially to low-skilled labor, doesn't pass through recruitment agencies. So people are recruited by relatives, people are recruited by friends. So in avoidance of that, so even if you get this opportunity, you still have to get clearance, from the Ministry of Gender. So there are so many details in here. I know that as we continuously educate people, we'll be unpacking this, as we go on and as the issues arise. But just to let you know that the regulations of 2021, are here. We are going to help with streamlining the recruitment of workers and their placement, abroad. I thank you.